From Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida lies a nation within a nation. The Gullah Geechee have been here for centuries and they've developed their own food, music, language, and unique way of life. To teach me a little more about the history and culture of the Gullah Geechee is community activist Akua Page. So Akua, how did the Gullah Geechee came to be?
So Gullah Geechee people were descendants of ancient agriculturalists who came from Western Central Africa, who were enslaved on sea islands off the coast of South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida.
So how did this community, you guys have developed your own unique way of life. What kind of factors led to that? How was that possible?
We was able to develop our own way of life, language, culture, and traditions because due to the nature of our enslavement, usually if people look up slavery or they see like a movie show, they usually see a white person as an overseer. But our enslavement over here was different, being that it was a marshland, a lot of mosquitoes. So a lot of white people, honestly, they couldn't stay on their plantation. So it was usually a black person. So you just had black people that came from different parts of Western Central Africa that spoke different languages, different traditions, enslaved on sea islands. And being that we were here isolated by ourselves, that created an environment for us to develop our own common language. So the Gullah Geechee language developed on plantations such as this one, on rice plantations. Gullah Geechee people are a mixture of different Western Central Africans. I call us one of the babies of the African diaspora. And being that we were here for so long, isolated on these plantations, it created an environment for us to develop our own unique way of speaking, because we had to figure out a way to communicate with each other. So one way I'm helping to preserve Gullah Geechee language is through my digital storytelling projects, where I'm just recording my elders, and I'm also recording millennials and younger generation kids as young as 4, just speaking in our native tongue. Because unfortunately, Gullah is considered an endangered language now, since the youngest speakers of it are my elders. And so trying to help keep that going by teaching people what I do know and trying to help elders be more comfortable, because there's a lot of linguistic oppression that went on. So a lot of people who do speak Gullah or Geechee kind of feel like, well, they don't want to speak it because people might discriminate against them. And so that's one way I'm helping to preserve it, letting people know this is an actual language. You know, it's being taught now at Harvard. Can't say it's not. It's an actual living, breathing language.
It's got to be really beautiful to hear those stories in their native language.
Definitely. I would say it's been bittersweet because I'm really working to help preserve that part of it, because I don't speak fluent Gullah. Most people I know, we don't speak it just because of all the oppression that went on. And so when I'm finding some of my elders who do speak it, you know, they're scared to speak it because some of them, they share with me, they used to get beat for speaking Gullah. And so, right, so if you was beaten for speaking it, then you're not going to want to pass that language on to your kids or anybody that you know, because you will feel like that's something bad. And so it's been bittersweet to just hear how they were treated, but it's also been beautiful to just capture the ones who are able to still speak it and feel like, okay, I see this is a safe space that I can speak the language that my ancestors passed down.
Well, tell me a little bit about food. You guys have your own really cool food tradition here. Tell me a little bit about that.
So a lot of our food traditions are based on the sea and the land, being that naturally just enslaved on the land and by the sea. So a lot of foods that we eat today, like rice, for example, which we eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that is a huge part of our culture. We have a saying that like a meal is not complete without a pot of rice. Does not matter what you make, you gotta have that pot of rice or your meal is not complete. So we're always pairing something with rice, be it seafood, which is one of my favorites, or be it some kind of vegetable, okra. But anything that we can find, we'll make sure that we're paired. And also it's a way to just stretch it, because a lot of people, we have big families and we also tend to just take on people even if we're not blood related. So being that rice is a grain that you can honestly make millions of different things with and feed a lot of people.
So rice is really important. It's economically, it sounds pretty important because you can feed a lot of folks. How does rice connect you maybe with your ancestors or people who came before you?
So much. Being that rice is actually the reason why this particular group of Africans from Western Central Africa were targeted, because they didn't take people from North Africa. They wanted folks from Western Central Africa, and they would even pay more for people who already had that skill of rice cultivation, being that that's how Charleston made so much of their wealth, from these rice plantation farms. And so naturally now for us, just by cooking rice, or even some of us who are starting to try to attempt to grill rice, that's paying an homage and connecting with our ancestors to let them know that what they did and died for wasn't forgotten. Because even some of the women during slavery, they would braid rice seeds into their daughters' hair just so they can have a piece of food on that journey, and also so they can plant it wherever they are, so they can remember where they are.
Want to learn more about our national parks? Then hit that subscribe button, friend. Stay up to date and catch bonus features by following us on Instagram at OutSCIder.